I know a couple of your Hey Mary K's. Was the decision to draft Shador Sanders made by Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, or did Jimmy Haslam force them to do that? There's this narrative that it was Jimmy Haslam. We've dispelled it several different ways. I'm curious as to what you have heard.
Well, of course, it's Andrew Berry's decision. He calls the shots. He has final say over the roster. And I know people love to do this with Jimmy Haslam. They love to create and perpetuate the narrative that he is calling the shots, but he is not calling the shots. Now, if we want to rewind the clock and go back to the Johnny Manziel years when Ray Farmer was a very inexperienced GM, I think at that point Jimmy Haslam did step in and do something about that. But that's not this regime. Andrew Berry is an experienced GM. Kevin Stefanski is an experienced coach. They're going into their sixth season, and that's not what's going on here. And no matter what I try to say, it seems like people don't want to listen to this. They just want to believe that this was Jimmy Haslam's idea to go out and draft Shador Sanders. But I think what happened is that, in addition to the fact that his value was good in the fifth round, too good to pass up for the Browns, I really also believe that Andrew Berry did want to help save Shador Sanders from going undrafted, because I don't believe that he felt that that was fair. I think he thought it was ridiculous. And I think that he did say, we are going to step in and end this and change this because it's not right what everyone else in the league is doing. So I think that had something to do with it.
The other thing, I know you wrote an article about this one. Why Shador Sanders was the no-brainer in the fifth round, and why the Browns had Dillon Gabriel. They obviously had Dillon Gabriel ranked higher. They took him in the third round.
Right. Well, as far as the no-brainer is concerned, a lot of teams talked about, or at least for background, it has gotten out there that teams did not want to deal with the noise, the extraneous stuff that goes along with bringing Shador Sanders into your town and onto your football team. But that was not it for the Browns. The Browns did not care about that at all. If they feel if they can't handle a Deion Sanders or a Shiloh Sanders or a Deion Jr. and whatever else comes with Shador, then they shouldn't be in the NFL. Because if you can't deal with the extraneous noise of a football player, then you're not worth your salt in this league. So that had nothing to do with how they felt about anything. And in terms of his personality, that was not an issue for them either. They actually like his personality. They almost see him as somewhat of an introvert, and in some ways, he kind of is. They don't see him as a Dion type of guy. So those things were not huge. That's not what it was about. For them, it was a football decision. And I think that they kind of looked at him as a little bit of a throwback to the older style kind of offense. And they are moving backwards to the Kevin Stefanski old way of doing things. But Shador, he doesn't have, prototypical height for that. He doesn't necessarily have the biggest arm for that. And the thing I think that concerned them the most were the negative plays that he took. He took a lot of negative plays, 94 sacks in his last two seasons at Colorado. And I think it was that type of thing more than anything.
So here's another article you wrote. Can Shador Sanders beat out the other three quarterbacks? Who do you view as the front runner?
Well, first, let me back up a little tiny bit and talk about why they had Dillon Gabriel ranked ahead of Shador Sanders. And the reason they did is because, from everything that I can gather, he is a quicker decision maker. He's a better decision maker, and he doesn't take those negative plays. If you saw with Shador, he was always kind of drifting backwards, not getting rid of the ball quickly enough. Dillon doesn't do that. He doesn't take those negative plays. He doesn't take those unnecessary sacks. And he's played a lot of football. He has started an FBS high 63 games in his career. And he's thrown 155 touchdown passes, which matches Case Keenum for the FBS lead. So he's got a lot of football under his belt. He's a fast processor and a quick thinker. And I think that's why he went at number 94 to them and Shador at 144. Now, can Shador beat out these other quarterbacks? He's going to be coming from behind. So much so that right now in this race, I would probably put him fourth behind Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, and that's how I would have them ranked. So he's got a tall order ahead of him, and he's going to have to do whatever it takes to climb up there and try to get on top.
The quote that I keep hearing, I've heard it a number of times, Kevin Stefanski may have even said it in his press conference, they kept looking on tape for where the size was a factor for Dylan Gabriel and just couldn't see it. And there's plenty of tape on him, but he's listed at 5'11", and they couldn't see where that size became a detriment.
Well, it hasn't been to this point, and hopefully for him and for them, that will continue to be the case. Because, as you know, in the NFL, everyone's bigger, everyone's faster, everyone's stronger. So, yeah, to this point, it hasn't been a detriment to him, and he has to make sure that that's still the case. Or is Cam Hayward going to get his hands up there and swat some of those passes down? Is TJ going to do that? So, these are the things that you have to figure out going forward. But to this point, he's like some of the other shorter quarterbacks in the NFL that they haven't let it be a detriment to them, like a Russell Wilson, like a Kyler Murray. And now we can throw Baker Mayfield into that mix because he's not letting it hurt him either.
Yeah, Drew Brees would be another one.